And we're here with Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. I am fresh off of Bill Burr on Sunday night. Went to Bill Burr.
Oh, yeah.
At Fenway. It was quite the experience. There were no pictures or videos taken because my phone had to go in a nice little pouch that they make you put it in that you can't unlock. Mm-hmm. So getting out of Fenway was a mess because
I imagine.
Because there were only like a few people with the magnets to unlock it. So it looked like a press scrum around all these poor like Fenway workers that, it's like everyone just had their phone out like this, and they had the pouch. It was quite the experience, but it was good. It was a fun show. He was great. I understand.
Advertised.
Yes, very as advertised. I understand why the phone went in the pouch.
Yes. Shocking.
I like 5 minutes in, I totally was like, oh, this probably shouldn't be on camera.
I always get very frazzled when they do that. I went to John Mulaney. I think it was at the Wilbur Theater last November, I want to say. And like, I knew going into it, they were probably going to like have like a no phone area, but it's like, as soon as you walked in, they had like those pouches, just grab your phone and do it. So then I'm just sitting there. And then like a minute before he goes on stage, I'm like, shit, I definitely didn't silence my phone. So if like all of a sudden my phone starts buzzing, if it's like you, a Ty, or someone like just like texting me or something, I'm going to get called out. John Mulaney's going to just call me out, ruin it. So I then like ran downstairs and like just like pretty much put it in like coat check. I was like, this is going to be buzzing. It's not going to be when I'm in the middle of the theater or anything like that. So it's kind of frazzled me when those things happen.
Oh yeah, no, it was one thing I had too, because we went into this little like restaurant in Fenway, like a little like pre-club because we knew someone, and we go in and I didn't realize they were gonna do this. They just took my phone immediately and put it in the pouch, and I was like, yes. I also don't know if I silenced my phone. I wanted to kind of check it one last time, didn't get to do it. I was happy though, because I was like, at least I know there's no Bruins news coming. Like there's no way there's any Bruins news unless like they trade for Milan Lucic, which everybody seems to be, wondering about. But unless they do that, there's nothing else going to happen on a Sunday night in the middle of August. So I was like, I think I'm safe. There's no news. Nothing on Twitter is going to happen that I'm going to like really miss. So it was a fun time though. Good time, very expensive tickets, but really fun. So good night out with friends. But so one thing that obviously there's not a ton to talk about with the Bruins right now. As I said, there's not a lot of recent news to break down. So I've been doing this thing. Maybe you've seen it at Warrior, expectations videos for players going into the 2022-23 season. And so far I've done a fair amount. I've done DeBrusk, which we'll touch on in this episode. I've done Mark McLaughlin. I've done Hampus Lindholm, Charlie Coyle, David Krejci, who we'll also get to in this episode. But Krejci and DeBrusk are really the only two like big guys I've hit on, and same with Hampus Lindholm. But in this episode, I want to get to the big guns of expectations. Your Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy. We're gonna do Krejci again because I want to get your take on Krejci. We've talked about a lot about him, but what is he actually gonna maybe do? What do you expect? Jeremy Swayman, Linus Ullmark, Jake DeBrusk again, and Fabian Lysell. Throw that one, a little curveball in there because the World Juniors have been playing so well that we have to talk about him. So expectations-wise for Patrice Bergeron, I believe back a few weeks ago or months, the summer blends together, but I believe I said Bergeron was due for somewhat of a regression this year, just given he's older. Like this is not a hot take. I'm going to get killed for it, as I always do. But what do you think? What's realistic out of Bergeron this year?
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky situation with Bergeron because I think, as you said, the common sense, you look at the amount of mileage that he's kind of tacked on, the amount of games he's played, the injury history he's had. It would not surprise you if I don't think he's a guy that's going to, let's say he just falls off a cliff and goes from being a first line center to a solid 3C, right? I don't think it's going to drop off like that, but I think the bigger worry or concern is that the injuries eventually catch up to him. And I mean, he's had this groin injury that has kind of plagued him for years now that he was able to avoid, but it's one of those things where all it takes is one kind of quick movement, one thing to go haywire, and it's stuck with them. I mean, you look at how good Bergeron, that line was during the 2019 playoffs. I think it was game 4 against Carolina's when he tweaked it. You then go into the Blues series where the O'Reilly line pretty much owned them, and that was it, right? So again, you're looking at another 82 game season with a guy who's going to turn 37, or who's already 37. Like, it's one of those things where you're just not playing with fire, but I think you have to go with the expectation that, all right, Patrice Bergeron's a Hall of Famer. He's defied a lot of maybe the narratives surrounding his career. I mean, he went out last year and had arguably his best defensive season ever. Like, could he once again win a Selke and be a 60, 70 point guy? Of course. Like, at this point, he's kind of proven it last year, but I think you just have to be pragmatic and realistic about it, that if he's going to be a guy that gives you 40 points, not great, and does not fit in line with what it is. But I also don't think that it's going to be like, remember when like David Ortiz retired and like he announced before the year, then went out and hit like 320 with 38 home runs. Like, I don't think Bergeron at
2016 year for Ortiz was absurd.
Yeah. Like, I don't think it's going to be a situation where Bergeron's going to, break the 100-point plateau or something like that. But if he can still once again be a guy that gives you 50, 60 points, great defensive numbers, the Bruins going to need it. It's not like a thing where it's like, well, that'd be great. It's like, no, you need to have at least that layer of or that standard of production from a guy who's in such a pivotal role like that. It's just, you have to, I think, go with the expectation that whether it's 5 games, 10 games, like sooner or later, those injuries are going to catch up. So if you're the Bruins, you hope that if there is a blip, it's something in the middle of the season as opposed to something that could linger for an extended stretch, especially once you get to the playoffs.
If you're the Bruins and you want to really compete for a cup, I think you need Bergeron at like 60 points minimum.
Yeah.
Just given that he's your he's your 1C. Like, and again, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not like I have him at like 60 to 65 points somewhere in there defensively. I mean, it's going to be hard to top last season, just given how good he was defensively. It's not like he's going to like stink. But what I'm saying is like, he was so elite defensively last year that like it's very hard to top that at 37 years old. The other thing is he's going to be without Marchand for the first 1 to 2 months of the season, which worries me because those two have been the dynamic duo for so long and they work together so well. So you wonder about that. You also wonder if this is his last year. And again, I don't want to look too far ahead because I know everybody's so happy that he's actually chosen to come back and he signed a 1-year deal, and that's great. But if he was close to retirement this season, going into this upcoming season, don't you think he's going to be even closer after this upcoming one? Like, to me, it just feels like we're going to be in the same place next summer with him. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. Like, again, they needed him back. What I'm saying is it would not surprise me if this is his final season. And again, that's speculation. That is not reporting. Do not tweet. No one tweet that out as reporting. But
he's just now like that gif of Birdman where he's just like doing this. He's
ready. He's ready to pounce. All those aggregation sites ready to pounce. Evan Marinofsky, yes. Bruins Beach reporting. But I do think that there's a chance this could be his last season. But again, 60 points as your number one center, captain, easing the transition for Jim Montgomery. Like it's a good thing he's back. And also the cap hit is very palatable. So
quite good.
You can't go wrong with that. But I do think that, again, he's coming back as your number one center. You need that. Brad Marchand, interesting case. Again, has really in the past bunch of seasons been, if not the top winger, or, one of the top, if not the top left winger in the game, just how good he is. So he's going to be out for the first, 1 to 2 months of the year, probably sometime in like late November could be coming back, hopefully for the Bruins. So the interesting thing with Marchand is, it feels like he's in his prime right now, right? Like this is his time to be really good. And is he still in the middle of it, or is he kind of getting to that point where you're getting to the end of that prime? And that's a scary thing. And what do you think? I mean, do you think that he's still in it?
Well, I think it's one thing where I think if he was completely healthy or he was coming off, let's say, an off-season procedure, but it's, to clean up the knee or arthroscopic, something like that, it's another, uphill climb, another tougher hurdle to kind of clear when it's surgery on both your hips at his age, right? I mean, I think he's 33 going on 34. As you said, he's still, if he was completely healthy, I wouldn't see any concern about his game just dropping off or something like that, even though he is getting up there. But I still think you have to going with the expectation that coming off of double hip surgery, let's say he gets back in November, and that's right in the middle of that brutal stretch we've talked about where they play, Tampa and Colorado and all these teams. That's going to be tough to jump kind of right back into that thing. And who knows, this is the same guy who, as soon as he had that hernia surgery a few years back, was reinvigorated and was excited and said it's best he's felt in years and played like it, when he finally got back out there on the ice. Maybe this is something where if these hip issues been bothering him for years, he comes back and plays like a renewed player and doesn't really have much of a drop off. But again, it's kind of like the Bergeron thing where I think as much as you can be optimistic, and if there's ever a guy who would probably take the challenge of coming off of double hip surgery and answering the call, it's probably a guy like Brad Marchand. But again, I think you just got to be pragmatic and realistic about it, that it would not come as much of a surprise if he's a little slow out of the gate, just considering the severity of the injury that he's trying to overcome here. So again, it's one of those things where would the Bruins love for him to be the Brad Marchand who, if it was an 82 game season, would be in line for 100 points? Of course. And you kind of need that. You need him to be an elite top 10 wing in the game, especially in that role in the lineup. But I still think there's a little bit of a question mark there in terms of, are you getting that same elite player? Or are you getting someone who's very good, but needs to take a good amount of time to shake the rust off, which I think is probably going to be the case, at least early on.
Yeah. And again, there's no preseason for him. So you're jumping right into action. I mean, again, last year, 80 points in 70 games. He's been over a point per game player since 2016-17. I think he'll still be over a point per game player. I think it comes down to just how much. Again, like he had 179 games back in 2018-19. So I do think, somewhere around an 80-point pace would be good out of him. Again, I'm not saying for the season. He's not going to have 80 points in like 45 games. That, would be.
It's not Jake DeBrusk 27 goals per game, as I said. 27
goals per game.
In Poke the Bear. That was a bit of a misspoke there, Evan. A little bit of a slip up.
Yes. Well, no, I think there was a sincere prediction in there that you're trying to hide. You got to own up to it. You got to say, you know what? He's going to get 27 points per game. But I do think Marchand's a guy who pencil an 80 point pace. Again, I think, as you said, like if he truly feels a lot better after the hip surgery, maybe you get a reinvigorated Brad Marchand. Because didn't he say something a year or two ago? I know you alluded to it, but he said something along the lines of like, I've been playing at something like 70%, or there was a percent he gave that was like, oh, you've only been playing at that. Like now it's going to be ridiculous. And so again, there's Bergeron and Marchand are so paramount to success for this Bruins team. And it's unfortunate for the Bruins that they're going to be without Marchand to begin the year, because I do think with this roster, now you have Bergeron and Krejci down the middle, and like everybody seems to be, if everybody was healthy, it's actually a fairly solid roster. It's that you're missing some guys for quite a while. That makes
in the final pieces. Yeah, that top six, if everyone's healthy, as you said, is legit. But you need kind of the engine that makes it roll is a guy like Marchand who can change momentum with in the offensive zone on a PK shift, with a hit, all those things. You're going to miss a guy like that to be kind of that spark plug, especially early on. Yeah,
you're going to miss that a ton. Speaking of the top six, David Pastrnak. Pastrnak's an interesting one because he was supposed to hit 50 goals in 2019-20, and then the pandemic hit. And I remember you had a ton of 50 goal content ready to go, and then you had to adjust. And tough things. Stupid pandemic. That was the worst part of the COVID pandemic. No 50 goals to David Pastrnak.
Sure,
so that's what some are saying.
Yeah, sure. People are saying in the streets.
In the streets. And that's the reason you don't want another pandemic. Remember, I think we spoke to the Bear, you said no more pandemics.
That's the main, of course. Yeah, that is the primary reason.
That was the primary reason David Pastrnak couldn't hit 50 goals. But is this the year? Full season of Pastrnak, is this the year that he finally hits 50?
I mean, the stars are aligned in terms of, I think you look at what Pasternak's basic skill set is, which shouldn't erode anytime soon in terms of that release. I think he should benefit from a full year, not only next to David Krejci, who he's got great chemistry with, who will be able to, I think, consistently generate more offense on that second line as opposed to maybe a guy like Holla. And I think also a full season next to Taylor Hall can only help as well in terms of their ability to kind of play off each other on the rush. Hall's a great passer as well. A full 82 game stretch with him, if Montgomery commits to it, I think can only lead to good things. I think you look at the Bruins and their willingness to maybe change up that power play a little bit, whether it's, maybe giving a guy like Krejci reps on the first power play as well. I think there's just other avenues for the Bruins to complement and get more out of what is a pretty established skill set for David Pastrnak. I mean, you look at his year last year, it was pretty slow out of the gate, but he's still, even with that kind of slower stretch to open the year, still finished with 40 goals, right? This is a guy who can kind of fall out of bed and score 35, 40 goals without, having any extended slumps or anything like that. But if he gets going, I think 45, 50 goals is perfectly within reach, which if you're the Bruins, you better sign him to a contract before that happens, because it's not great to have a guy maybe score 50 goals right before he hits the open market as a free agent.
I will tell you, if he goes into the season without a contract, he's going to have like 70 goals.
Of course.
That's exactly what's going to happen. I expect him to be somewhere between 45 to 50 goals. As you said, perfect opportunity with David Krejci in the middle. They want to play together. Pastrnak was basically assistant general manager this summer. So again, I think he does love that Krejci's in the middle. Taylor Hall's a terrific passer on the left side. As you said, stars should align. Now it'll be interesting to see how Montgomery handles the top six at the beginning of the season without Marchand. And even with Marchand, does Pastrnak still stay down on second line, or does Montgomery, who said in the past he likes those three together? Again, this was a few years back now, but he loves those three together. Maybe he puts them up with Marchand and Bergeron again, which again still yields lots of results for David Pastrnak personally. So again, somewhere between 45 to 50 goals, I think is a good area for David Pastrnak to be in. Charlie McAvoy, an interesting one. Charlie McAvoy, outstanding season last year, third in the Norris, or was it fourth? Was he third or fourth?
I think he was third, wasn't? No, he was fourth, right? Because it was Hedman and
Makar and Yossi.
Yeah, Makar won.
That's right. Oh, I know that.
Of course, yeah. Had to remind you, Evan. Just like UMass just won number one dining. So shocking. It's number ones all over the place in UMass these days. But Charlie McAvoy, outstanding season, improved off of finishing fifth the year before, fourth last year. I believe 56 points this past season. I don't think McAvoy is ever going to be this, 80 point a year guy. But when he comes back after his injury, I would expect him to pick up where he left off. Again, you don't want to put points on a defenseman, but somewhere around a 60-point pace. Pace. I'm not saying like 60 points, but I'm saying a pace of like 60 points or so over an 82-game stretch. And being a shutdown number one defenseman. But I'm curious, what else is there? What else is there from him? Like, what is the next step for him? Yeah, I think the only real step he needs to reach is probably just more consistent power play production and maybe just a little bit higher point totals. And again, it's kind of unfortunate because I think even when he gets back from this injury, he's probably has another tier to reach, but the fact that he's missing probably the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season is probably going to impact how legitimate he's going to be as a Norris candidate, because I'd imagine he'd be right up there. Again, you've got guys like Makar and Fox and these guys that are kind of in his way that are probably not going away anytime soon. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if McAvoy years, looking ahead, he has 60, 65 points, maybe 70 points, which is fantastic for everything else he brings. But I think it's fair to assume that a guy like Makar is going to probably pop 100 points one of these years, and he's going to still be, the runner-up or in third place or what have you. So it's tough in that regard in terms of the national recognition. But yeah, I think in terms of what he still has to offer, I mean, he's a shutdown defenseman. He's great in transition. He obviously took a huge step this past year in terms of his offensive game. But I think if he gets more comfortable running the power play, he's a guy that I'd assume should benefit more from Montgomery and John Gruden. You listen to what both those coaches have said in terms of one avenue they want to focus on is more shots from the blue line, either at even strength or on the power play. A guy like McAvoy, who's had a reluctance in the past to shoot, but has that skill set, you have to imagine they try to coax more of that out of him. So I think he's still a guy that has more to give in terms of the offensive game. So if it was a full 82-game season, yeah, I would go into it expecting him to be a top 3 Norris finalist, a guy that could hit 60, 65 points. But like kind of many other guys, like the same with Marchand, you still have to, I think, put that little qualifier ahead of it that he's still coming off of a surgery that's requiring, 5-6 months of rehab to get back on the ice. So I think expectations still be high. He's a young player who's, every year he's kind of set a new ceiling in terms of what his overall skill set should be. But they're going to absolutely miss him to open the year because he does a little bit of everything for this team in every area of the ice.
Yeah, and I think that's where Hampus Lindholm has to step up a little bit to start the year, given that he's going to be the number one and he's going to be on the power play and he's going to be killing penalties and kind of stepping in for McAvoy in that sense. But I think a lot of Bruins fans feel good about Charlie McAvoy. But when you really want to feel good, you want to hear about our next partner, which is a product I literally use every day. I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health and more energy. I don't drink coffee or use caffeine because I wanted healthier, natural energy. And AG1 has that in droves. It doesn't taste like it's super healthy or anything either. It has a mild tropical taste that I actually look forward to each morning. Can't beat it. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. Special blend of ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. It's lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it contains less than a gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything while still tasting really good. This all supports better sleep quality and mental clarity. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition, and it's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Bruins. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/Bruins to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Thank God I have you to be like the interpreter.
I'm the mime. I'm not doing, I'm just the guy just stuck in the wall. Evan does an actual legitimate ad read.
It works out perfectly. It's a perfect team. People love us together doing that stuff. Another interesting expectation one is David Krejci, which again, I did a video on. I think it just dropped on Monday, but Krejci is an interesting case. And we've kind of hit on this a little bit when we were talking, when he signed, what to expect out of David Krejci. I think my point total I have him at is somewhere around like 58 points. Just given that, again, he's been out of the NHL for over a year at this point. He is older than he was when he left. That's how aging works. Maybe he's got to take Athletic Greens. That's what he's got to take. See, if he takes Athletic Greens, he's going to he's going to be like 25 out.
Stratosphere.
Oh, crazy. 0809 David Krejci, which I still think is his highest point total. It's like 0809 was like his best year. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
It was
70 plus points. That's for
it
sure.
was quite the year. That was when it was like Blake Wheeler and like Michael Ryder as his line mates. So it was he was really working with something over there. But what do you expect? What should the Bruins get out of David Krejci this year?
Yeah, I think perhaps I'm being just overly optimistic, but I think he's a guy that could easily hit 70 points, 70 plus points if he's healthy. Like as much as I think people talk about the fact that he's another year removed from the NHL ranks. He played against farmers, whatever agricultural occupation, that you said he played against last year. I think, again, you look at his skill set and what he brings. It's not something that necessarily ages out in terms of his ability to control the pace, to shield the puck, to slow the pace down, his playmaking ability. It's all still going to be there, except what do you know? He's also going to have arguably one of the best pure scorers in the league on his right side, and his left side, a guy in Taylor Hall, who, if he probably rolled with Pastrnak and Eric Hall the entire year, was on pace for, I think, 78 points over a full season. Pretty good. So I think you combine that, even if David Krejci has taken a step back, you look at his supporting cast, it's almost like the inverse of what has primarily been David Krejci's career for the last 7-8 years in Boston, where even maybe he's the third wheel, I guess, or the guy who maybe has the least amount left in the tank. You look at just what the talent is around him. He plays his game and, is the David Krejci that we expect. He's still going to rack up the points. And it's not even counting maybe how Jim Montgomery looks at the power play. Is David Krejci going to get reps at the point, maybe on the power play? Like, again, we don't really know how they're going to augment that, but that's a pretty, that going with, 5 forwards, especially maybe when McAvoy and Grzelcyk aren't out there, very plausible scenario. So I think it's easy to map out a situation where a guy like Krejci could get 60 plus points as long as he stays healthy. I mean, I think the cast around him is there.
Yeah, it's again, I think the good situation for the Bruins is it's not like David Krejci's coming in to be between like Nick Ritchie and Jake DeBrusk.
Yes.
Again, like he's coming in with two real legitimate threats on both flanks. So I do think Krejci's going to have a good season. Again, just avoiding the injuries and making sure he hasn't lost a step. Again, I think I said this to you. Maybe I said this like not when we were recording, but like what if David Krejci goes out there and it's just terrible? Like, what if Krejci's like,
would not
whoa,
be great.
this is not
Evan,
David Krejci.
would not be swell.
It would not be very fun.
Would not be thrilled.
No, it wouldn't go over very well if David Krejci goes out there and it's just like, or like he did pulls a Tuukka Rask and he's like, you know what? I want to be a team ambassador. I don't want to. I don't want to golf anymore. Yeah, and by the way, Tuukka Rask having the time of his life.
Yes.
So I mean, I can't hate on that. At least right now, but. With the goaltending, I'm going to put them together because I think that only makes sense. Jeremy Swayman, Linus Ullmark, because I don't think either has or last season solidified like, oh, I'm the starter and I'm the backup. Like, I think it is going to be the exact same makeup as they had last year, where they are basically a tandem. They're going to struggle at points. They're going to be really good at points. One's going to pick up the other and vice versa. And again, I know that's a lukewarm take, but I don't see like Jeremy Swayman completely just taking the number one job. I don't see Ullmark just grabbing the number one job. Again, I think Swayman had 41 games last year. Mm-hmm. Again, for him, 2.41 goals against average, 914 save percentage. Ullmark was 2.45 goals against average, but a 917 save percentage. So they were basically almost equal when you actually just like leveled out the season. Do you see any difference in this season? Does one regress? Does one take a huge step forward? What happens?
I mean, I think you should have the expectation that a guy like Swayman, who's that young but has showed promise, should build off of what he showed this past season. But is it to expect him to all of a sudden go from promising goalie to Vezina candidate? I don't think so.
You worship Sturkin.
Yeah, that would be great if that happened. And he has the skill set and the poise to take a really big step forward and assert himself as a top 10 goalie, which the Bruins would be thrilled about. But I think naturally you expect him to continue to improve, work on his game. But it all comes back to the kind of the structure the Bruins have in place there with him and Ullmark, where I think we didn't expect Ullmark's going to be as advertised as a steady goalie, a guy who's been around the league that if he has a structured zone defense in front of him should help him out. Again, as you said, I don't think you're going to have a big disparity in terms of the reps. I imagine whoever wins the starting job, I think it's still going to be 55-45, right? As all goes well. Even if, I think for Montgomery, it's all about kind of riding the hot hand. And if a guy like Swayman hits a bump in the road, which is to be expected as a young goalie, you have Ullmark there to kind of bail you out. That's kind of why Ullmark was valuable last year. People talk about that contract, but whenever he hit a heater, it was exactly when the Bruins needed him to. Like, I think there was, Swayman struggled. You had that stretch in December where they were in a lull where he was, bailed them out quite a few times. I don't expect that to change in terms of what Ullmark brings. I think the biggest variable is just how much more you can expect out of Swayman, which I think he will be better. It's just what tier is he going to reach?
Yeah. And I also wonder about the defense in front of him. Because again, no McAvoy, no Grzelcyk to start the year. That doesn't help things. So, and also you have a new coach. And I think they're probably going to stick with the zone defense, but you wonder if there are little tweaks. So I do, again, you wonder, are there going to be defensive breakdowns that lead to more high danger chances for the other team? Something to think about. Again, I'm not saying that that's absolutely going to happen. Because again, you still have Lindholm and, hopefully for them, Carlo takes a step forward again. And, you've got other guys there, Derek Forbort, but you're going to have Jakub Zboril probably getting consistent minutes coming off a torn ACL. You wonder. So again, I would expect Swayman to take some sort of leap forward. That's, I think, what they would like. Actually, I don't think that. I know that. So I think they would much like to have Swayman take a big step forward. Safe bet, though, that Swayman and Ullmark are going to share the net as they did last year. So final two players, Jake DeBrusk and Fabian Lysell. We'll start with DeBrusk. I think I said this a few times now. I expect DeBrusk to have 30 goals. The ingredients are there for Jake DeBrusk to put up 30 goals, because I do think, if he is next to Patrice Bergeron, whether that's, or if maybe he's on the left side, someone else on the right. Maybe it's Fabian Lysell. Maybe it's Craig Smith to start the year. Whoever it is, Pavel Zacha on the left, DeBrusk on the right. When Marchand comes back, and if it's Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk, or it's Hall, Krejci, DeBrusk, I think there's ingredients there for success. And I think success for him is 30 goals. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, Evan, per my last podcast, I said he was scoring 27 goals per game. So
30 just over season would be terrible.
Exactly.
27 a game is what we're talking.
Exactly. But being realistic this time, yeah, I think he's a guy that you look at the way he played last year. I think should reinforce the fact that he has that skill set to be a guy that can give you 25, 30 goals. And if you want this team to be successful, you're going to need him to. I mean, that's something that we talked about last week, that why a guy like DeBrusk is probably the most consequential guy in the top six, because he's the one I think elevates you into that tier of, all right, you already have a very, very good top six when guys are healthy with Bergeron and Marchand, Hall, Krejci, Pastrnak. But if DeBrusk goes out there and gives you 25, 30 goals as well, that's a matchup nightmare in terms of how they're playing. And if, again, it's not like DeBrusk has this other level of his game he needs to reach. It's all about, I think, just sticking with what worked last year, right? Like, it's not like he, as much as the production finally broke through for him, was he like reinventing the wheel? No, it was like going back to kind of what we saw early on in his career, right? Where he's just driving to the net, putting himself into grade A ice, catching on rebounds, generating those high danger chances. And if you're going to give him more reps with guys like Marchand and Bergeron and maybe Krejci, or more power play reps at the net front role, maybe, I think it can only help out in terms of he stays playing that style of game that we've seen him do multiple times in spurts. As long as he can keep that consistent over the course of a year, I think he could like fall backwards into 25 goals if he keeps up that level of play.
Yeah. Again, you saw the confidence last year, and even getting the bounces, right? Just getting to those high danger areas produced results. So again, that's what I would expect out of DeBrusk. Lysell's an interesting case. I don't expect 27 goals per game from Fabian Lysell. I'll admit it.
Let's be realistic here.
We have
30 goals per game.
30 goals. Okay. Oh, I was thinking more like 23, just young guy, 23 goals per game for Fabian Lysell. I'm going to go conservative on this. Yeah, I'm going to go conservative on this. But I'm going to go conservative on my expectations for Lysell this year. I think he's going to start the year in Providence. I think he's going to completely light it up. And I think throughout the year, he's going to be brought up to the Bruins. Because again, he is a top six player, unless, as we talked about with Craig Smith, unless they say, hey, you know what, we can dump Craig Smith and put Lysell in for him, and we'll get the same or better results instead of the future. Maybe they do that, but I don't see a spot on the roster right now that he truly fits in. Because again, you could bring him up for the fourth line if you'd like, but I think he'd be better suited to play 20-something minutes a night in Providence rather than 12 to 14 minutes up in Boston on the fourth line in a situation where like that's just not his game.
Mm-hmm.
But I would expect him to be brought up throughout the year when they need him. And at some point he's going to find a spot. Maybe that's next, most likely next year. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think for as much as I think Bruins fans are excited to see what he can offer at this next level, I think patience is the most important thing, because, and I think the Bruins, where they're in this win now window, would it be great if Lysell hits immediately and puts himself as a Calder Trophy finalist? Yeah, of course. You would love to have that helping out this team, but you don't need him to be a guy that you have to slot into the top six. He's not the guy that's going to determine whether this club is competitive. If he has more to give, that's great. But you also have guys like, as you said, Craig Smith in place on the third line that can fill that role that I think we both expect should bounce back this year if he stays with the team. Like, I think you have to give Lysell the amount of time he needs down in Providence to learn the ropes, to get those top 6 minutes. I think you even saw, as good as his production was at World Juniors, you saw a guy that still needs to put on some weight, still needs to add some muscle, a guy that I think he went up against kind of bigger teams, but still kind of kept to the outside quite a bit. That, he should learn those reps down in Providence. So if he has 30 points in his first 14 games in Providence, then you maybe have to augment your plans for him and look at maybe moving a guy and give him a spot. But you're not in a situation where you need him to hit immediately this year to be the guy that puts you over the top. It would be great if it happens, but I think if you're a Bruins fan, you should be happy with him getting those reps in Providence, learning the pro game at that level, and then seeing kind of what builds from there.
Yeah, don't rush his development. Don't rush this. Like, just let it happen. There's no need to thrust him into, hey, Can you be on our top line and put up like 50 points? Because we really need that right now. That wouldn't be fun for Fabian Lysell or anybody for that matter. But it is fun. Subscribing to Boston Sports Journal. What can the people look forward to over from you at BSJ?
Yeah, we're going to keep all of our loyal readers busy throughout the offseason in terms of looking at the remaining question marks for this roster, as much as the signings and free agency and all that stuff are pretty much over and done with now. There's still a lot of looming questions over how to best get production out of this team, especially in the early going. So we'll dissect all the important questions with training camp around the corner. So please subscribe over at bostonsportsjournal.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter as well, you can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins listeners, have a great rest of your week.